Commander Park Jin-ho stepped out of the military transport shuttle onto the crystal platform of the Galactic Tribunal Station. The massive structure floated in the void between three star systems, its transparent walls revealing the swirling nebulae beyond. Ships from dozens of species docked at various levels, sleek Velkari vessels that looked like frozen lightning, bulky Terran cruisers bristling with defensive arrays, and the organic-looking craft of the insectoid Hive Collective. His boots clicked against the polished floor as he walked through corridors filled with beings he had only seen in military briefings. A group of tall, blue-skinned diplomats from Proxima Minor glided past him, their robes flowing like water. Mechanical sentries with glowing red sensors watched every movement, their weapons systems hidden but ready. The air recyclers hummed, with alien frequencies that made his teeth ache. Jin-ho's reflection caught his eye in the curved wall panels. 20 years of military service had carved lines around his eyes, but his uniform was immaculate. The Distinguished Service Cross on high. His chest felt heavier than usual today. The golden medal bore the inscription, "For Valor Beyond Species," words that had meant everything to him 3 years ago at Titan Base. The courtroom doors towered 15 feet high, made from some alien metal that shifted colors like oil on water. As they slid open with a soft hiss, Jin-ho felt the weight of 100 stairs. The chamber was enormous, with floating observation platforms for different atmospheric requirements. Methane-breathing delegates sat in sealed pods, while energy beings flickered in containment fields. At the center, Judge Thanemore of the Velkari Empire occupied a raised crystalline throne. His species looked like living diamonds, their bodies refracting light into rainbow patterns. But there was nothing beautiful about the cold intelligence in his faceted eyes. The judge's voice carried through translation devices in a dozen languages simultaneously. "Commander Park Jin-ho of Terra, you stand accused of violating the sacred protocols of first contact during the Titan Base incident." The words echoed through the chamber as floating holographic displays showed images of burning space stations and fleeing refugee ships. Jin-ho took his position at the witness stand, a simple metal podium that looked primitive compared to the alien technology surrounding him. The prosecutor, a snake-like being with 4 arms, began reading charges from a device that projected words directly into his mind. War crimes, unnecessary violence, destruction of sacred sites. But it was Judge Thanemore who drew his attention. The crystalline being's form darkened as his gaze fixed on Jin-ho's chest. Other Velkari in the gallery began making clicking sounds, their equivalent of angry muttering. "Human." The judge's voice cut through the translator static. "That barbaric ornament on your chest is an insult to every peaceful being in this chamber. Remove that celebration of violence immediately." Jin-ho's hand moved instinctively to the medal. The metal was warm from his body heat, and he could feel the tiny engravings under his fingertips. Names. 67 names of Velkari civilians he had carried through fire and vacuum to safety. "Your Honor, this medal represents silence." Thanemore's crystalline form blazed with inner light. "I know what it represents. The destruction of my people's colony ship, the deaths of innocents, the human hunger for conquest disguised as heroism." Kim Mire, his attorney, rose from the defense table. She was young for such an important case, but her reputation for handling interspecies law was legendary. "Your Honor, if we might explain the circumstances." "There are no circumstances that justify wearing trophies of war in this sacred place of justice." The judge gestured, and 2 massive robotic bailiffs began moving toward Jin-ho. Their chrome bodies were equipped with restraint fields and stun weapons. "Remove the ornament, or be removed from these proceedings." The courtroom fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems and the distant rumble of passing starships. Jin-ho felt the eyes of his fellow humans in the gallery, Ambassador Kim Hyun, Admiral Park Seon, the families of soldiers who had died at Titan Base. He thought of the medal ceremonies, the speeches about human courage and sacrifice. But mostly, he thought about Kralith, the Velkari engineer whose daughter he had pulled from the wreckage. He remembered her crystalline tears, something he had learned was impossible for her species, except in moments of extreme emotion. She had pressed something into his hand as the rescue ships arrived, a small crystal pendant, warm with her people's blessing. Some honors, Jinho said quietly, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, are worth more than comfort. This medal doesn't celebrate war, Your Honor. It mourns the peace we failed to keep and honors those who suffered for our failure. The robotic bailiffs stopped their advance as murmurs rippled through the alien galleries. Judge Thanemer's form flickered between transparency and opacity, a sign of barely controlled rage in his species. Your career ends here, human. Guards, escort this relic of barbarism from my sight. I respectfully decline, Your Honor, Jinho said, his voice cutting through the chamber's artificial atmosphere like a blade. The words hung in the recycled air for a heartbeat before chaos erupted. The massive courtroom exploded into motion. Alien delegates in the floating observation pods began rapid conversations in languages that sounded like breaking glass and grinding metal. The insectoid hive collective representatives clicked their mandibles in what their translator devices registered as shocked disapproval. Even the energy beings in their containment fields flickered more rapidly, their plasma forms shifting between colors. Judge Thanemore's crystalline body darkened from clear diamond to smoky quartz. Light refracted strangely through his form as rage built inside him like pressure in a dying star. The other Velkari in the gallery began that clicking sound again, but louder now, more aggressive. It reminded Jinho of the sound ice makes when a starship's hull breaches, sharp, dangerous, final, human. Thanemer's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the vast chamber. This medal glorifies the destruction of my people at Titan Base. You celebrate the burning of our colony ship, the deaths of our children, the failure of our first attempt at peaceful expansion into your sector. The holographic displays around the courtroom suddenly blazed to life, showing footage from 3 years ago. Burning wreckage tumbled through space against the backdrop of Titan's methane clouds. Velkari ships, beautiful crystalline vessels that looked like frozen music, lay shattered among the debris. Emergency pods scattered like seeds in a cosmic wind, while human and alien rescue ships raced to collect survivors. You will remove that trophy of conquest, or be held in contempt of this tribunal and every peaceful species it represents. Jinho felt the tremor in his hands but kept his voice steady. The medal seemed to pulse against his chest, warm with memories that the judge's twisted version of events couldn't touch. This medal honors the 67 Velkari civilians I carried to safety when your own military abandoned them. It represents cooperation, not conquest. The clicking from the Velkari gallery stopped abruptly. In the sudden silence, Jinho could hear the distant hum of the station's massive engines, keeping them positioned between the 3 star systems. Somewhere in the walls, atmospheric processors worked overtime to manage the complex mix of gases needed for dozens of different species. Lies, Thanemore hissed, but something in his crystalline form flickered, like a crack in perfect glass. Kim Mireille shot up from the defense table, her chair scraping against the metal floor. Her usually perfect composure cracked as she saw her client's career evaporating before her eyes. Your Honor, my client means no disrespect to this court or the Velkari people. Perhaps we could discuss this matter in chambers. There is nothing to discuss. Thanemore's form blazed with internal light as he raised one crystalline hand. Your client has chosen to insult every being in this chamber. His career is over. His testimony is worthless. Guards, escort this human from my courtroom immediately. The robotic bailiffs moved forward with mechanical precision. Each unit stood 8 feet tall, their chrome surfaces reflecting the chaotic light from the holographic displays. Red scanner beams swept across Jinho as they analyzed him for weapons, escape routes, resistance potential. Their restraint fields hummed to life, energy nets that could hold a raging berserker from the outer rim. Ambassador Kim Hyon half rose from his seat in the human gallery, his face pale. Behind him, Admiral Park Seon's weathered features showed the strain of watching a good soldier's career die in real time. The families of the human casualties from Titan Base looked on in horror as their hero was branded a war criminal. But Jinho didn't move. As the robotic guards approached, he remained standing at the witness podium like a statue carved from determination. His uniform was perfect, his posture military straight, his eyes fixed on Judge Thanemore's crystalline face. "Some things are worth more than a career," he said simply. The first robot reached him, its restraint field crackling to life. The energy net spread out like luminous spider silk, designed to wrap around him and drag him from the chamber. Other species had seen humans removed this way before, usually for emotional outbursts or cultural misunderstandings. It was considered humane by galactic standards, but as the energy field touched Jinho's uniform, something unexpected happened. The metal on his chest began to glow with a soft, warm light. Not the harsh glare of human technology, but something else. Something that made several Velkari delegates gasp in recognition. The robot's sensors registered the anomaly and paused, their restraint protocol. In that moment of mechanical confusion, Jinho spoke again, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "This medal was blessed by your own people, Judge Thanemore. By the survivors I pulled from that wreckage. By the families whose children I carried through vacuum and fire. If wearing their blessing makes me a criminal in your eyes, then I accept that judgment." The courtroom fell silent, except for the steady pulse of alien hearts and the whisper of recycled atmosphere. 3 days after Jinho's removal from the Galactic Tribunal, investigative journalist Lee Sumin sat in her cramped apartment on Earth's lunar colony, surrounded by floating holographic displays. Coffee cups and energy bar wrappers littered her desk as she worked through her third sleepless night. The story of the disgraced commander had caught her attention, but something felt wrong about the official narrative. Her fingers danced across the quantum keyboard, accessing databases that most people didn't even know existed. As a former military intelligence analyst turned reporter, Sumin had contacts in places where shadows had shadows. The encrypted files she was hunting would either clear Jinho's name or bury her career alongside his. Computer, cross-reference. Judge Thanemore's service record with Velkari military deployment during the Titan base incident, she commanded. The AI system hummed to life, processing terabytes of classified information through security barriers that had taken her months to crack. The first results made her sit up straighter. Thanemore hadn't just been assigned to the Velkari Empire's judicial corps after Titan base. He had been there during the attack. As a military liaison aboard the colony ship Shard of Dawn, the same vessel that had suffered catastrophic damage when raiders from the Skull Nebula attacked the mining station. But it was the personal files that made her blood run cold. Family. Manifest records showed that Thanemore's mate and 3 offspring had been aboard the colony ship when it was struck by enemy fire. The vessel's crystalline hull had shattered like glass in the void, and hundreds of Velkari civilians had been sucked into the vacuum of space. "Son of a comet," Sumin whispered, her breath fogging in the cold apartment air. Lunar colonies heating. Systems were always breaking down, but she barely noticed the chill as more files cascaded across her screens. She found communications logs from the Titan base battle that had never been released to the public. Emergency transmissions between human and Velkari ships, desperate calls for assistance, coordination efforts to save as many lives as possible. And there, buried in the tactical reports, was Commander Park Jinho's voice coordinating the rescue. Operations. Velkari vessel Shard of Dawn, this is Commander Park. We're detecting life signs in your Section 7. Can you confirm? Negative, human vessel. Our military command has ordered full evacuation. Section 7 is compromised. Sir, I'm reading 60+ civilians in that area. Children, elderly, wounded. They won't make it to the escape pods in time. You are not authorized to enter Velkari territory, Commander. Return to your vessel immediately. But Jinho hadn't returned. The tactical logs showed his small rescue craft detaching from the human fleet and diving straight into the wreckage of the Velkari colony ship. His ship's hull cameras recorded everything as he moved through twisted corridors, carrying unconscious Velkari civilians to safety one by one. Sumin's hands shook as she accessed the next set of files. Medical records from the rescue ships showed that Thanemore himself had been pulled from the wreckage, not by Velkari forces, but by human rescuers. His family hadn't been so lucky. The pattern became clear as she dug deeper into galactic court records. Over the past 3 years, Judge Thanemore had presided over dozens of cases involving human-alien cooperation. In every single instance, he had ruled against human interests. Trade disputes, territorial claims, diplomatic incidents, all decided in favor of non-human parties, regardless of evidence. Her secure communication device chimed with an incoming message from an encrypted source. The sender's identity was scrambled, but the message was clear. "Stop digging or join your friend in disgrace." Sumin smiled grimly and kept working. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on the crystalline world of Velkar Prime, former engineer Kral Ith watched the tribunal proceedings on her home's holographic display. Her daughter Zerihan, now a young adult studying interspecies relations, sat beside her as they witnessed Jinho's humiliation. "Mother, isn't that the human who saved us?" Zerihan asked, her crystalline form shifting through colors that indicated confusion and distress. Kralith's body darkened with remembered grief and growing anger. "Yes, little crystal, the same human who carried you when your leg was shattered, the one who shared his oxygen when our ship's atmosphere failed." Around them, their home's walls displayed images from that terrible day 3 years ago. Kralith had been one of the colony ship's chief engineers, working desperately to restore power to the damaged sections. She remembered the moment the human, in the strange metal suit, had appeared in her workstation, speaking broken Velkari, as he helped her evacuate the wounded. "We must speak for him," Zerian said, her young voice carrying the musical tones that indicated absolute certainty in her species. "The Empire has forbidden any contact with the tribunal proceedings," Kralith replied, but her form was already shifting toward the determined clarity that meant she had made up her mind. Within hours, messages began flowing through the Velkari. Communication networks. Other survivors from the Titan base incident, engineers, medical staff, civilians who had been carried to safety by human hands, started connecting with each other. The government monitoring systems tried to intercept the communications, but the survivors were clever, using old mining frequencies and encryption codes from their industrial work. One by one, they began to plan their journey to the Galactic Tribunal. The massive courtroom doors exploded inward with a sound like thunder. The robotic security systems had been trying to keep them sealed, but 12 Velkari civilians pushed through with crystalline determination that could cut through steel. Their bodies blazed with inner light as they strode into the chamber, leaving trails of rainbow refractions across the polished floors. Judge Thanemore's perfect crystalline form cracked visibly, hairline fractures appearing across his diamond-like surface. His voice box made a sound like breaking glass as he tried to speak. The other Velkari officials in the gallery began rapid clicking sounds that the translators couldn't process. Pure shock had broken their communication protocols. Leading the group was Kralith, her engineering uniform replaced by traditional Velkari robes that shimmered like captured starlight. Beside her walked her daughter Zerian, now grown into a young adult whose crystalline body pulsed with the confident light of someone who had found their purpose. Behind them came 10 other survivors, each one carrying small glowing crystals that hummed with harmonic frequencies. The alien delegates in their floating observation pods began agitated conversations. The insectoid hive collective representatives spread their wings in defensive postures while the energy beings flickered rapidly between dimensions. Emergency protocols activated throughout the station as security robots moved to intercept the unauthorized entry. "Halt!" Thanemore's voice boomed through the chamber's amplification systems. "This is a closed tribunal. You have no authority." "Here." Kralith stepped forward, her crystalline feet ringing against the metal floor like temple bells. When she spoke, her words came out in perfect Korean, each syllable carefully learned and practiced over 3 long years. "We invoke the right of truth-speaking under Article 7 of the Galactic Justice Codes," she announced, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones that meant absolute truth in Velkari culture. "We claim sanctuary in this place of judgment, to speak for one who cannot speak for himself." The chamber fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems and the distant rumble of passing starships. Even the robotic security units froze as their programming tried to process this ancient, legal protocol that hadn't been used in over a century. Young Zerian moved past her mother, her form blazing with the bright clarity that only came with powerful emotion. The scars on her crystalline legs were still visible, proof of the injuries she had suffered 3 years ago when raiders attacked Titan Base. "This human carried me when my legs were broken, and I could not walk," she said. Her words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "He shared his oxygen when our ship's atmosphere was venting into space. He bled beside us, fought beside us, mourned beside us when others of both our species died in the attack." Her voice grew stronger with each word, the harmonic frequencies building until they resonated through the chamber's structure itself. Other survivors began stepping forward, each one holding their glowing memorial crystals. "I am Engineer Velkos," said an older Velkari, whose body bore the mathematical patterns of his profession. "This human pulled me from a collapsing reactor, core when my own people had given me up for dead. He suffered radiation burns that still mark his skin." "I am Medical Officer Threnal," another survivor testified. "This human worked beside me for 18 hours straight, helping tend to wounded of both species. He learned our healing songs to comfort dying children whose parents were lost in the void." One by one, they spoke their truths. Each testimony was accompanied by holographic records pulled from their memorial crystals, actual footage from the Titan Base incident showing Commander Park Jin-ho moving through the wreckage like a guardian spirit, carrying the wounded to safety regardless of species. Then Kralith stepped forward again, her form now blazing with an inner light so bright it hurt to look at directly. From her robes, she produced something that made every Velkari in the chamber gasp in recognition. It was a harmony stone, a sacred crystal that their spiritual leaders used only for the most important ceremonies. "This medal that Judge Thenimore calls a trophy of war," she said, holding the stone toward Jinho's chest where his distinguished service cross caught the light, "was blessed by our High Resonance Council. It carries the harmony of 67 lives saved, the gratitude of families reunited, the sacred bond between species who shed blood together." The harmony stone began to sing, a beautiful, complex melody that filled the entire chamber. The song told the story of the Titan Base incident in pure emotion, showing the truth that no words could capture. Judge Thenimore's crystalline form began to crack more visibly as the sacred music revealed his deception. At that moment, communications expert Han Junho activated his portable holographic projector. The air above the courtroom filled with damning evidence, altered transcripts, falsified reports, recorded conversations that proved Thenimore's systematic campaign against human-alien cooperation. "These are the judge's private communications," Han Junho announced, his voice cutting through the Harmony Stone's song. 3 years of deliberately mistranslating testimony, hiding evidence, and sabotaging diplomatic relations between species. The recordings played in Thenimore's own voice, speaking to co-conspirators about his plan to paint humanity as inherently violent and untrustworthy. The other members of the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence as their most trusted judge was exposed as the architect of interspecies hatred. Judge Thenimore's crystalline body finally shattered completely, his form collapsing into a pile of broken glass and bitter light. The shattered remains of Judge Thenimore's crystalline form were swept away by maintenance robots as the Galactic Council moved into emergency session. Within hours, the corrupted judge was officially stripped of all authority and banished from Velkari space forever. His broken pieces were loaded onto a prison transport bound for the Outer Rim's exile colonies, where disgraced officials spent their remaining years in isolation. But the real earthquake was just beginning. As news of the trial spread across subspace communication networks, other species started coming forward with their own stories. The Insectoid Hive Collective revealed that Thenimore had deliberately mistranslated their territorial agreements, causing 3 unnecessary border wars. The plasma beings from the Andromeda Spiral showed evidence that he had hidden crucial evidence in trade disputes, costing their civilization entire star systems. Within a week, 17 different species had filed formal complaints about Thenimore's rulings. The Galactic Council faced its worst crisis in 1,000 years as the foundation of interspecies justice crumbled before their eyes. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Commander Park Jin-ho sat in his empty apartment, staring at the official reinstatement order. Fleet Admiral Park Seon himself had delivered it, along with a promotion to Colonel and Command of humanity's first interspecies cooperation unit. The paperwork promised everything he had worked toward for 20 years: respect, authority, a chance to shape humanity's future among the stars. He crumpled the orders and threw them in the recycling unit. 3 months later, a small ceremony took place on Lunar Colony's observation deck. The transparent dome offered a perfect view of Earth, hanging like a blue jewel against the star field, while ships from dozens of species docked at the orbital platforms nearby. The crowd was small but significant: human diplomats, Velkari survivors, journalists, and curious onlookers who had followed the trial coverage. Jin-ho stood at a simple podium, wearing civilian clothes for the first time in decades. His distinguished service cross gleamed on his chest, but now it was accompanied by a small Velkari harmony crystal that sang softly in harmony with his heartbeat. Beside him, Kralith's crystalline form pulsed with warm, steady light as she prepared to address the crowd in her practiced Korean. "Today we announce the founding of the Titan Memorial Foundation," Jin-ho said, his voice carrying clearly through the dome's acoustics. "Our mission is simple: to build bridges between species, provide aid to worlds torn by conflict, and ensure that the sacrifices made at Titan Base were not in vain." Behind them, holographic displays showed the Foundation's first projects: emergency shelters being constructed on war-torn colonies, translator programs that help different species understand each other's cultures, medical research combining human and alien knowledge to treat diseases that affected multiple species. "We're not politicians or soldiers," Kralith added, her harmonic voice creating beautiful overtones in the dome's atmosphere. "We're just beings who learned that survival means helping each other, regardless of what star system we call home." The Foundation's headquarters occupied a converted cargo ship that had once hauled mining equipment between star systems. Now its holds contained medical supplies, cultural exchange programs, and communication equipment that could reach every corner of known space. The ship's hull bore a simple symbol: a human hand clasping a Velkari crystalline appendage against the backdrop of Titan's rings. Young volunteers from both species worked side by side in the ship's corridors. Human engineers collaborated with Velkari harmonic specialists to develop new technologies. Medical students shared techniques for treating injuries across different biological systems. Children from the refugee camps played together in the observation lounges, their laughter transcending language barriers. The memorial garden occupied the ship's largest cargo hold, now converted into a living space with artificial gravity and atmospheric controls. Trees from Earth grew alongside crystalline formations from Velkar Prime, creating a unique ecosystem that represented unity through diversity. The walls were covered with holographic plaques, bearing the names of everyone who died during the Titan base attack: human, Velkari, and the raiders, whose desperation had driven them to violence in the first place. Zerian, now the Foundation's youngest department head, led tours for visiting dignitaries. Her scarred legs had healed into beautiful patterns that she wore proudly as reminders of survival and friendship. She often told visitors about the human soldier, who had carried her through burning corridors, teaching them that heroism came in many forms. Kim Mirai watched from the crowd as her former client finished his speech. She had left her prestigious law firm to serve as the Foundation's legal counsel, helping draft the agreements that allowed the organization to operate across territorial boundaries. Han Junho stood beside her, now heading the Foundation's communication division, ensuring that their message of cooperation reached every inhabited world. "You know," Kim Mirai whispered, as applause filled the dome. "When I first met Jinho, I thought he was just another stubborn soldier who didn't understand politics." Han Junho smiled, his eyes reflecting the lights of passing starships. "What changed your mind?" She gestured toward the mixed crowd of humans and aliens, children and adults, former enemies now working together toward common goals. He understood something the rest of us missed. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. As the ceremony concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Jinho remained at the observation windows, watching Earth turn slowly. Below, his career as a military officer was over, but something better had begun. In the reflection of the transparent dome, he could see his medal catching the light, no longer a symbol of past achievements, but a promise for the future. The sea.
And